This is not financial advice. I'm recording my thoughts about Amazon stock. I'm going to do two versions, one long version and one short version of this video. The short version will only include the valuation. The long version will include the details of the business model as well as the financials. Let's get started with the video. Amazon stock is currently trading at about $102 with a market cap of about $1 trillion. In the past 5 years, the stock only grew about 34%, whereas the S&P 500 ETF SPY grew about 55%. That's almost 20% underperformance from Amazon stock. And now the question is, if I invest at $102, can I get a good return in the next 5 years that can beat the SPY? That's what I'm going to talk in this video. Let's look at the valuation for Amazon stock in 2027. I'm going to do two cases. One is a base case and another one with great execution. As I said before, Amazon makes its revenue in three different revenue segments broadly: international, North America, and AWS. I'm going to analyze AWS separately because it's a very different business. I'm going to evaluate international and North America together because they are both very similar businesses. As you can see on my screen, in 2022, AWS made about $80 billion of revenue. And I'm estimating a growth of 22.5% for this business. As I said before, even though they only grew 20% last year, the CAGR for the cloud business itself is about 18%, and Amazon is the market leader with 35% market share. A lot of companies cut their cloud spending this year, but it has to come back next year or the year after. So I'm going to assume 22.5% revenue growth rate for the next few years, which I think is reasonable because AWS is a leader in its sector. With that, they can make about $220 billion of revenue in 2027. And I'm going to assume a 25% net profit margin for this company, with which they can make about $55 billion of net income in 2027. And for a company that's growing in 22.5% and 25% net profit margin, I can assume a multiple of 25. But since AWS is a leader and they have a huge lead when compared to their peers, I can give it a premium multiple of 27.5, with which AWS will be worth about $1.5 trillion in 2027. With respect to number of outstanding shares, as I said before, Amazon doesn't have significant free cash flow. Even if they have free cash flow, they're spending on something else. So they're not doing active buybacks like Apple, Google, or Microsoft. So I'm going to assume that the share count is going to stay flat, no buybacks. So I'm going to assume 10.62 billion outstanding shares even in 2027, with which Amazon Web Services would be worth about $143. And in the e-commerce business, as I said before, we are going to analyze North America and international together. The total revenue is about $430 billion. And the estimated growth rate, I'm assuming 10%, because the North America is growing at about 15% plus, and international growth is actually negative, like negative 7%. But I'm optimistic that things are going to get better in the coming years. That's why I'm assuming 10% revenue growth for this company, with which they can make about $692 billion of revenue in 2027. With respect to the net profit margin, I'm only going to assume 7% because, as we all know, e-commerce is a very low margin business and Amazon's gross margins are in the teens. And as I said before, I'm counting on Amazon ads to offset for the loss they make in the other segments like online stores, physical stores, etc. So 7% I think is reasonable, and with that they can make about $48 billion of net income in 2027 from the e-commerce business. And since the growth is only 10% and net profit margin is only 7%, the multiple should be about 10. But I'm going to give it a cash cow multiple of 15 because I have to pay a premium for Amazon's e-commerce business because they have about 40% market share, and that deserves a premium, right? So I put a 15 multiple on that, with which the e-commerce business will be worth about $727 billion. The share count is going to stay the same, 10.6 billion, and with that, the e-commerce business would be worth about $68. So when I combine the $143 AWS and $68 e-commerce together, that will result in $211 stock price in 2027. And in my opinion, this base case is slightly on the conservative side because I think people are going to pay a better multiple for these businesses, and also Amazon can achieve better profitability because they already know that their stock is underperforming and they are cutting on their operating costs, and I'm counting on their CEO to make sure that their operating costs get cut significantly, and they can also do some automation and achieve more efficiency in the e-commerce business especially. So overall, $211 in 2027 I think is definitely achievable, and currently the stock price is about $102, right? So that's about 100% plus gain in 5 years, which is a very attractive gain. So now let's move on to the great execution case. I'm not going to waste your time on this. I'm assuming 25% growth rate for AWS, which I think still is reasonable, even though I say great execution, and no buybacks. I'm actually keeping the multiple same. I can assign a multiple of 30, but I'm keeping the multiple same. With that, $174 for AWS, and for the e-commerce I'm giving 10% net profit margins. I kept the 10% growth rate same, even the multiple is 15. So e-commerce would be about $98. So together $271. So that's about 2.7x in 5 years, which is a great gain. In conclusion, the base case valuation is resulting about $211, and the great execution case is resulting in $271 stock price for Amazon. And based on this, I'm a buyer of Amazon as long as it trades between $100 and $120. If it falls below $100, that's even great, but I'm a buyer at $102. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching.